Just a heads up, I had to do some really degenerate stuff to the footage for this video because YouTube, for whatever reason, gets really upset with copyright for On Stranger Tides. For whatever reason, the first 3 movies are okay, but On Stranger Tides is where they draw the line. So ignore all of that stuff. If you want to watch this video without that stupid watermark and stuff on it, just subscribe to my Patreon. I'll put it on there for you guys. Thank you very much. So, Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides. While I know this film has its fans, even I subjectively enjoy a few parts of it. The key word being subjectively. I personally enjoy many parts of the film on an entirely surface level. Killer performances by Ian McShane, Geoffrey Rush, Penelope Cruz, Kevin McNally, and of course Johnny Depp. The stupidly badass soundtrack that's been stuck in my head since 2011. The coolest freaking designs for Blackbeard, the mermaids, everything to do with the Spanish. And some of the action set pieces are really fun. I freaking love the mutiny on the Queen Anne's Revenge, the mermaid attack, the opening chase sequence has some pretty good laughs. Some of the visual effects are pretty damn neat. All of these are completely valid reasons for personal enjoyment, as with any other reason people might enjoy it. That being said, none of these are bearing on quality, and while I personally have fun with many parts of this film, it's still a mess and a half. And while I can make a massive video breaking down the narrative in excruciating detail, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'll just give a brief rundown of, discussing what works and what doesn't. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to tear this film apart. I don't take pleasure in being negative over Pirates of the Caribbean, but I should be truthful with my arguments. So the film begins with a crewman of the Santiago, the ship of Juan Ponce de Leon, in a catch of fish. The neat thing is that Ponce de Leon died in 1523, and this film is set in 1750. Of course, this sets up the key driving force of the film, the quest for immortality. The man is brought before King Ferdinand, and he recognized the stories told of the sailor, and the symbol in his logbook. Nothing too wrong here, since it's pretty obvious the sailor drank from the Fountain of Youth, which is a central MacGuffin. The only issue here is a small one, and that being how the guy survived drifting in the ocean for so long and how his book survived. Theoretically, it could have fallen overboard from a recent passing ship, or it could have actually been there way longer. Now, it's the inciting incident of the plot, so I'm going to excuse this. Contrivances are bound to happen at this point of a film, otherwise there simply wouldn't be a plot to begin with. Meanwhile, in London, a trial is being held for Jack Sparrow, but they mistakenly get Mr. Gibbs on trial. This is odd. I'm not sure how the physical description of the very unique-looking Captain Jack Sparrow would be mistaken for Mr. Gibbs, somebody who looks like a common sailor. Again, start of the film, so on some level I can ignore contrivances, because all film needs some level of contrivance to happen. Though I do find it odd how after Jack, in disguise as the judge, sentenced Gibbs to a life in prison and adjourned the court, he took the outfit off while still in the courthouse. What if somebody walked by? They see a very obvious not Justice Smith throwing his robes and wig into the closet, which the actual judge is held captive in. This is an unusually stupid action for Jack to make, as he's well established to be extremely intelligent and quick on his feet. Why is he taking a risk here that could get him and Mr. Gibbs killed if they get caught? This is a running issue in the film, Jack having both moments of pure stupidity and extreme plot armor. Don't get me wrong, Jack has tons of plot armor in the previous films, but here it's just ridiculous. Jack and Gibbs leave the courthouse, Jack dressed in the most attention-grabbing outfit in the streets, and they're both thrown into prisoner transport, after Jack paid off the driver to take him to the nearest port. Gibbs asks Jack about his voyage to the Fountain of Youth, which plays off the small joke at the end of At World's End where Jack is continuing his search for immortality after having the opportunity to live forever as the Dutchman captain. While I don't think using a joke as a serious plot point is an objective flaw, it shows me here that there's no real plan for a sequel after the trilogy. But I digress. The transport is stopped and Jack is brought before the king, where he asks Jack about the Fountain of Youth, and Jack is apparently assembling a crew in London. 2 major issues here. Why would he have Jack on trial for execution if he needs Jack to lead a voyage to the fountain? And 2, this relies on the convenience of Jack being in London for real, while also hearing word of the fake Jack Sparrow assembling a crew, when Jack is the one person who's come close to finding the fountain in recent news of the sailor of Ponce de Leon's crew surviving to 1750, sparking interest from the Spanish Empire to find the fountain. This film can't happen unless all of these events, with a small obtuse connections, happen all around the same time. Not really a good start. And here we have something that's pissed me off for a decade. Barbossa.
Afternoon, sire.
Yes, Barbossa, the pirate. who was willing to lay down his life to fight against oppressive colonial powers to create a free world for all pirates to sail under, became a privateer for the British Empire. I think it speaks for itself how broken that is. To add insult to injury, they even introduce him using Beckett's theme from the previous films. As if to say, all of his previous accomplishments don't matter. So now we've undone his development from 1 through 3, undone the victory of the Brethren, and now we brought the world back to square one by having the British Empire back in full glory. Now, I know the real British Empire didn't just vanish in 1729, but with how the last film ended with a united force of pirates now ruling the seas once again, yeah, I'm a bit annoyed. Jack escapes through some massive contrivances and plot armor-fueled gags, escaping out a window, passing by Judi Dench, and running through the streets of London, only to be cornered and saved by his father. While I enjoy the hell out of Teague, he's very conveniently placed in order to save his son. They talk inside the tavern, where Teague imparts his wisdom, explaining the fountain to Jack. If you see, Jack, if she asks you to try something in bed, don't accept it. Your Highness will thank me later. Jack meets a sailor named Scrum, who's my favorite character in the film because of how bloody wholesome he is, and he calls Jack an imposter of what he thinks is the real Jack Sparrow. Jack goes to confront the imposter, engages in a comically long sword duel that serves zero purpose, and it's revealed only at the end that it's Jack, Old Flame, Angelica. Now, some might take issue with me calling the duel pointless, when there are plenty of long sword duels in the previous films, but they always served a purpose. Be it one character preventing another character from escaping, or three people of near equal abilities having a constant back and forth trying to get an object, they were long for a reason. If you made this duel 30 seconds long, nothing would change. The same information would be conveyed. It doesn't even reveal any information about Angelica since it's supposed to be a twist that's even her to begin with in the duel. So it serves no real purpose other than being a cool fight scene, I guess. Redcoats storm the tavern, Jack and Angelica have another action scene that properly shows that they have similar crafty and creative ways of beating opponents, which is pretty solid. Until they are in a convenient spot to escape through a trapdoor. Okay then. They swim back to the docks, and Jack is tranked in the neck. Cut to Gibbs and Barbossa, where Barbossa becomes a sick and twisted psycho again after telling Gibbs to tie his own noose. Yeah, again, character assassination. Gibbs and Barbossa were on good terms in the last film, and Barbossa even left Gibbs unharmed by leaving him in the dock in Tortuga after his mutiny. Thankfully, before we could see Barbossa ruined further, Gibbs burns the Malkun map to make himself more useful in Barbossa's quest to find the Fountain of Youth. Oh, and did I mention they really sidelined Mr. Gibbs in this film? I think it's a bloody shame. I love Mr. Gibbs. Cut to the Queen Anne's Revenge, we see Jack slaving away and he comes to learn that the commanding officers are zombies. Angelica's the daughter of Blackbeard, and he's expected to die within a fortnight. Interesting setup, but it's a bit odd to make part of the crew curse while doing nothing with it. The previous films famously had cursed crews, but they served a narrative purpose, be it the reason the characters are going after the central MacGuffin, or setting up the dire stakes for the protagonists. Having them cursed here without having anything tying to the central narrative is a bit cheap. Maybe Blackbeard wants to curse them all to make them a full crew of zombies? I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas that might work better. We cut back to Gibbs, who asks for a drink, and Barbossa says he's not allowed to drink while serving in the Navy. Wait, what? He asks Gibbs if they're on the proper course, and Gibbs tells Barbossa that they are, with the proof that the Spaniards are going in the same direction. How this crew of experienced Navymen didn't notice the 3 full Spanish galleons a quarter mile away is beyond me, but I'll admit, it's a bit of a nitpick. After a false alarm with the crew getting ready to fire in the Spanish, we cut back to the Revenge, where Jack and the crew discuss a mutiny, and Jack comes to the conclusion that it's not Blackbeard's ship since nobody has ever seen him. Odd that Jack would say something that dumb, but what's even more odd is Scrum claiming that it's the Queen Anne's Revenge because he saw the name on the back. Believe it or not, it could still not be the Revenge, but Scrum isn't that smart, so I'll give it a pass. What I won't give a pass to, however, is Blackbeard would place the name of his ship on the back. Why would he do this? Doesn't he need to make port to collect resources? Fresh water, food, gunpowder, cloth? The typical things needed for a life at sea? The Black Pearl was a ship crewed by the undead skeletons that have no reason to ever make port, and the Dutchman is captained by a man who physically can't step on land to begin with, so it's fine that those ships had very unique looks within this world. Very odd that this supposed intelligent character would make such a stupid move. Anyways, Jack quickly tricks them into staging a mutiny, and no proper planning is done. They didn't decide to do it over the course of days or anything. They just decide to friggin' go for it, I guess. Jack goes to trick Angelica into thinking it was just a dream instead of killing her in her sleep. Very odd, but alright. We'll see later how he's very weird with if he wants her dead or not. Anyways, the mutiny is pure chaos as expected. Jack rescues the soon-to-be most obnoxious character in the film, and Blackbeard is finally introduced, played by the perfect actor for the part, Ian McShane. He reveals that he has telepathic control over the ship through his magical sword, quickly deducing that Jack is the leader of the mutiny, nearly killing him despite Jack being the only lead to the fountain, and he gets called out by the obnoxious missionary the wiki calls Philip Swift. Blackbeard threatens to kill him too, but Angelica says he needs Philip to save his immortal soul, so Blackbeard elects to kill the cook. Alright, why not just torture the leader of the mutiny if you want to set an example, but not kill him since he's a valuable asset? Nah, killing is cooler. He needs to burn some guy alive with the fires of hell. Anyways, Jack tries to tell Blackbeard that Angelica isn't his daughter, and Blackbeard threatens to kill Jack if he can't show him the way to the fountain, flexing his power with the voodoo doll of Jack. Keep a pin in that. Hold up, I thought drinking wasn't allowed. Anyways, everybody's scared of mermaids, which sets up their threat nicely. We jump back to the revenge. Jack is trying to extract information from Angelica by flirting with her, and holy shit, he is one lucky bastard. She explains that the ritual for the fountain requires a victim, setting up the climax, and she takes Jack down to the vault where Blackbeard stores his magical bottle ships, where we learn the fate of the Black Pearl. Angelica makes a deal with Jack. Get them to the fountain, she gives him the pearl. They arrive at Whitecap Bay after teasing the use of the voodoo doll for some reason, and set the trap for the mermaids, and before lighting the lighthouse, this guy has a perfect line.
Can you make it work? Made by the English. Let's not get our hopes up.
Anyways, Blackbeard's plan is to have some goobers in a rowboat, sitting in the middle of the bay, including the missionary that he needs to save his soul, which is a remarkably stupid idea. Also, why not attract the mermaids close to the docks? We see later that they're fine with swimming that close, so why not just have your men planted firmly on the docks while dropping weighted nets on them, thus minimizing casualties? Anyways, mermaids show up and it goes about as well as you'd expect. Being the least efficient plan possible for this mission, shit hits the fan, Jack blows up the lighthouse, and the mermaids get to bugger off, narrowly surviving an explosion that should have absolutely killed him. Lady, you have a sword in your tail. You gonna react? You seem weirdly calm for somebody who got friggin' impaled. So Barbossa and his crew arrive. Once again, Barbossa acts way out of line with Gibbs, and we jump back to Blackbeard and his crew, wandering the beach with Jack blindfolded. The reason for the blindfold? So Jack doesn't escape with the revenge, obviously. Blackbeard doesn't want him knowing where the ship is. It's around a corner. Yeah, it's really odd. Why not walk a few miles away? Maybe once you're in the jungle, you take the blindfold off? No? Still on the shores? Alright. What was I saying? She's, 10 out of 10. Best movie since Pirates XXX. Anyways, here begins the never-ending simpery of Philip, a subplot with zero substance beyond he's a nice guy. Remember when Will and Elizabeth used to love each other? You know, those two childhood best friends? Yeah? Yeah, no, we don't get that here. They come across a canyon and a destroyed bridge that they're supposed to cross. They don't want to go around, but they spend the next 4 minutes squabbling trying to choose who should jump off the cliff with zero character building at all. I'm fine with the plot not directly progressing, so long as we learn some new information about the characters or world, but none of that happens here. It's just here for the sake of a couple jokes. Anyways, they like to go around the river anyways, so that entire sequence was pointless anyways. We cut back to Barbossa and Gibbs, where Barbossa snags a poisonous frog for his plan later. Then we cut back to Jack running to the Santiago, famously captained by Ponce de Leon. Then, right after that, we cut back to Blackbeard's party, where his men trip and the tank holding the mermaid breaks. Anyways, Senor Simpington gives his shirt to her, even though she's a man-eating mermaid. Cool.
Walk or die.
Hold up, walk or die? Don't you need her alive?
Surely you're one of God's own creations.
Bring the creature, cover its head. She has a name!
Jesus, dude, can you stop simping for 5 friggin' minutes? He snaps on Blackbeard saying she has a name, but she doesn't. So he comes up with the most on-the-nose name imaginable.
She's Serena.
I'm still struggling to understand what characterization he has beyond being a nice religious guy, which sucks because having a character who's perfectly good in a world full of scummy pirates is a cool concept. A large part of why I think Will Turner is such a fun character. We cut back to Jack entering the Santiago, a ship that's stuck on the edge of a cliff, and he finds Ponce de Leon's corpse, a neat reference to the ride. Barbossa is here as well, and he's just sort of sitting there. You know, in the rickety ship that moves every time they take a step. He just sits there. Sounds like a great way to die. This entire set piece is really messy with what's considered heavy enough to move the ship or not, so I'm not going to cover it in too much detail, but nonetheless, it's still a big problem with how inconsistent it is. With how much they're moving around and how much the ship moves, They should have both already fallen to their deaths. They find the chest that they think has the chalices inside of it, and apparently has enough mass to move the ship around that should have knocked it over, but it just doesn't. But apparently that was already looted by the Spanish. Also, Ponce de Leon is a bit annoyed with Jack touching his map. Not a clue how he moves his head, because, well, he's dead. We cut back to Blackbeard. He's trying to get the mermaid to cry. Blackbeard deduces that Philip loves her and that she loves him too, and has the quartermaster slit his throat. Don't worry, he's not dead. Somehow. She doesn't cry, so they tie her up to harvest her tears when the sun rises. So at the camp the Spanish are holding the chalices at, somehow Jack and Barbossa manage to sneak in and grab it from this goober, and they quickly get caught. Hold up, how the f*** did he survive that? Anyways, Blackbeard, being a perpetual dickhead, gets the tear and has her tied up to die anyways. And yet another cut back to Jack and Barbossa. They're tied to a tree, and we learn that Barbossa does not give a shit about the king or the empire. He only became a privateer to have a shot of killing Blackbeard. This is good, until you really think about it. Why would he have a better shot of killing Blackbeard if he's a privateer? Why not ask for help from the Brethren, since Blackbeard violated the code with his attack? Why resort to joining the one team he was actively fighting against in the last film? So anyways, Jack manages to escape his bonds, climbs the tree to escape, somehow managing to overpower multiple guards at once with no help, and he snags the chalices back for them to all run to the fountain. Cut back to Blackbeard's party, Jack reunites with them, and Angelica makes a dick joke, Mr. Gibbs has a pig for some reason, and he strikes up a deal with Blackbeard. No harm will come to Angelica. Again, Jack is iffy if he wants her alive or not. Secondly, he wants his compass. And thirdly, he wants no harm to come to Mr. Gibbs. But he wasn't in any danger before meeting Blackbeard, so he could have just let Mr. Gibbs stay with Barbossa or hide somewhere on the island until Blackbeard was killed or got life from the fountain. Not hard at all. Of all things, Jack, you're actually putting Gibbs in danger by bringing him to confront Blackbeard. You're making Blackbeard aware of his existence as your friend. Why are you doing this? Jack finds a water droplet that falls upside down, he spots the cave, and they trek through to the location of the fountain, and a supposed dead end. Blackbeard gets pissed off and has the quartermaster shoot at Jack, but the bullet deflects off the chalices. That should have killed him, but alright. He says the magic words, Aqua de Vida, and somehow in this cave on an island in the New World, speaking a European language is the key to unlocking the fountain. World Building 101. The portal opens up, Jack goes through, and everyone else follows him through, including the British led by Barbossa. Anyways, a fight is about to break out, and before they can, Jack stupidly interrupts, needlessly putting his life at risk, and for some reason, even though he doesn't need Jack anymore, and he knows that Jack led Barbossa to the fountain, Blackbeard doesn't kill him. He's such a trigger-happy villain when it comes to killing people, yet when he has an actual justification to do so, he doesn't jump at the opportunity. Right then. In the previous films too, Jack would have taken advantage of the chaos to escape unharmed. But, whatever. I guess that Jack Sparrow is long gone. Philip gets cut free by this kid and gets slashed in the stomach after trying to take on somebody with a freaking sword while completely unarmed, and limps away like a dumbass to find his beloved mermaid girlfriend. Scrum, Angelica, and Jack all have a duel for the vial with the mermaid tear and the chalices, and for some odd reason they're willingly switching the items that they need to perform the ritual. Angelica is an expert duelist, so I'm not sure why she doesn't just toss the chalices to Scrum and she just duels Jack for the tear. Angelica might just be the dumbest character of this entire franchise, which sucks because she's played by one of the most divine human beings on this planet. So somehow Philip manages to get back to the mermaid without dying of blood loss, but instead of instantly cutting her free because she needs the water to survive, he waits around asking if she's alive, rubbing his hands all over her face like a bloody creep, and she wakes up and swims to the fountain for some reason. Seriously, why is she going back to the people who captured her? Is she trying to help them? Because when she arrives, she seems to be on Jack's side. The Spanish arrive like actual badasses with the coolest theme song ever. The leading Spaniard somehow crushes the bulletproof chalices and orders his men to destroy the temple. Then points a sword at Blackbeard, mocking his lack of faith in God. Actual f***ing Chad. Barbossa gets the jump on Blackbeard while monologuing. Angelica tries to pull the sword out of Blackbeard's chest, poisoning herself, and Jack randomly decides to help her again. I keep bringing this up each time he does this, because it gets really funny at the end. The Spanish leave once the temple is destroyed, the mermaid brings back the chalices for some reason, even though she has zero reason to help any of these people. Jack gets the water and puts a tear in the chalice, and he uses reverse psychology to kill Blackbeard and save Angelica. Now, I have a bit of a question. Earlier they say the ritual drains however many years a victim has left to the person who drinks the chalice with the tear. Alright, okay, so, It's a bit odd that while these two are both at death's door, one of them is capable of being saved from the poison blade. Odd, right? Like they seem to have forgotten that the fountain doesn't give eternal life, only taking life away from others. But Blackbeard sure doesn't have much life left in him after being impaled by a poison blade, and also just being an older man in a time before modern medicine. Anyway, so Blackbeard has a stupidly metal death that puts Indiana Jones villain deaths to shame, and Angelica is somehow healed. Once again, this is about to get really, really funny. We cut back to Philip and the mermaid, where she says she can save him from his wounds, and drags him hundreds of feet underwater. I'm sure he tasted delicious. So this is where all the scenes of Jack protecting Angelica become really, really funny, since he's marooning her on an island with a pistol loaded with a single shot as per the pirate code. So, if this is the outcome he's reached, why even care for her safety throughout the film to begin with? What was his reasoning for looking out for her? She was a constant threat to his survival, so why not just let her die at any point prior? Now, I also wonder what ship he used to get the rowboat to the island in the first place. The pearl is in a bottle. Barbossa claimed the Queen Anne's revenge. Did Jack row from Whitecap Bay through open seas to get to this tiny island? That seems odd. Anyway, she wastes her shot and Jack rows away, and we cut back to Barbossa claiming the revenge is his, which is pretty cool, admittedly. Now, in the final scene, it's revealed that Gibbs stole all of Blackbeard's bottle ships, including the Pearl, and for some odd reason, when asked about being able to live forever, Jack said it's best to live your life not knowing which moment is your last, which is admittedly pretty odd. The whole point of the original trilogy is that Jack needs to be able to live with himself forever. He has no qualms about living forever. Why would he? He's a bit of a loner, he keeps to himself quite a bit. But he learned through the course of those films that screwing over other people in the pursuit of eternal life is a horrible thing to do, and he grows to be a better person, capable of living with himself forever. So on the surface level, I have no issue with Jack coming to understand that screwing somebody else out of eternal life is the wrong thing to do. But that being said, the fact that he sees immortality as some kind of immature fantasy is really odd, considering who Jack Sparrow is. The whole point of the ending of At World's End is that he wants to live forever, but he'll never do it again if it hurts others. But nah, I guess that's a bit of a bad dream to have. Whatever, it only undermines the shit out of the previous film. Anyways, roll credits, and then we get the post-credit scene, where the voodoo doll somehow made the cosmically impossible journey to the exact tiny island somewhere in the middle of the ocean that Angelica is marooned on. What are the odds of this? Next to none. Brilliant sequel tease, folks. So yeah, those are my brief thoughts on Stranger Tides. While I subjectively enjoy many parts of it, especially the soundtrack and the great cast, I recognize the objective flaws in the writing and how it basically invalidates multiple parts of the previous films for no reason. It's exceedingly obvious that it wasn't supposed to exist, since Gore Verbinski never came back to direct, nor did most of the cast want to come back after the trilogy. It's really frustrating, because it's laden with character assassination, screw-ups with world building, undoing of previous victories, and it eventually became the blueprint for the dreaded Disney Legacy sequel. This is how we got stuff like The Force Awakens, Dial of Destiny, and even Dead Men Tell No Tales. And no, I won't be covering that. Never. It's not gonna happen. You can't make me do it! Alright, maybe I'll cover it eventually. Anyways, that's it for today. You guys know the drill. Like and subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on the film, join my Discord server if you want to talk to me one-on-one about Pirates of the Caribbean and any other adventure-y topic. Also, I'd like to give a huge shout out to my first two patrons on this channel, The First Cairo and Cadmus Kane. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. Check out my Patreon and merch stores, and I wish you all have a great day.